So in today's video we are going to see measures of central tendency. So first of all we will just see why this word central tendency is being used. So this is because the observations or the numerical values in most of the data sets, they show some tendency to either group or cluster around some value of an observation which is located in the middle of all observations. So it is necessary for us to identify or calculate this typical central value, which is also called the average, to describe or project the characteristic of the entire data set. So that is why this descriptive value is the measure of the central tendency or location, and the methods of computing this central value are called as the measures of central tendency. Now first of all we shall see what are the objectives of obtaining such measures. So some of the objectives in order to calculate the typical central value or average, which is used of course to describe the entire data set, are first of all it is useful to extract and summarize the characteristics of the entire data set in some precise form. So for example, it is difficult to understand the individual family's need for water during summers. So therefore knowledge of the average quantity of water needed for the entire population can help the government in planning for water resources. Now since the average represents the entire data set, it facilitates or helps to compare between two or more data sets. Such comparisons, they can be made either at a point of time or over a period of time. So for example, the average sales figures of any month, it can be compared with the preceding months or even with the sales figures of competitive firms for the same months. Then these measures of central tendency, it offers a base for computing some other measures such as dispersion, skewness, kurtosis, etc. that can help in many other phases of the statistical analysis. Now we shall see what are the requisites of the measure of central tendency. So some of the requirements which are to be satisfied by the average or a measure of central tendency, these are like this. First of all, it should be rigidly defined. That means the definition of the average, it should be clear and rigid so that there can be uniformity in its interpretation by different decision makers or researchers or investigators. So there should not be any chance for applying discretion. Rather, it should be defined by some proper algebraic formula. Then it should be based on all the observations. To ensure that it should represent the entire data set, its value should be calculated by taking into consideration the entire data set. It should be as such easy to understand and calculate, right? So we should use a simple method for the computation, but at the same time ensure that the accuracy is not reduced as well as the advantages are not lost. There should be a sampling stability. What is the meaning of this? The value of the average calculated from various independent random samples of the same size from the given population should not differ or vary much from each other. Okay, so the least amount of difference, if any, it should be considered to be the sampling error. That is how we are saying that the data set should have sampling stability. Also it should be capable of further algebraic treatment. That means the nature of the average should be such that it can be used for further statistical analysis of the data set. So for example, it should be possible to determine the average production in a particular year by the use of average production in each month of that particular year. And very important, lastly, it should not be affected by extreme observations. So the value of the average, it should not be affected by very small or very large observations in the given data. Otherwise, the average value, it may not be truly representative of the characteristics of the entire data set. So now we are going to talk about the mathematical averages. So in this, there are three. First is the arithmetic mean, which is commonly called as the mean or the average. Within this, we have got two categories. One is simple mean and one is weighted mean. Then we have got geometric mean and then we have got harmonic mean. So about all this, we are going to see how they are used, what are the formulas, etc. by means of the examples in the further part of the video. Then we have got the averages based on position. These are the median, the quartiles, the deciles, the percentiles and the modes. So again we are going to see all these in details. So let us start first with the arithmetic mean. So for calculating the arithmetic mean, there are two ways. Either we can make use of the ungrouped data or grouped data. That means in the case of the videos where we saw the tabulation of data, etc., there we have seen how the ungrouped data can be made into the grouped data, right? So once again, it is suggested that you can go back to those videos also and see how tabulation of data was done. Now we are going to see by means of an example how to calculate the arithmetic mean. So this is the statement. There is a survey of 5 textile companies and the profit which has been earned by the companies in a certain year in crores of rupees has been given. So this profit is 15, 20, 10, 35 and 32 and the arithmetic mean of the profit earned, it has to be found. So here we are seeing the direct method. In the direct method, what you have to do? You have to add all the observations which is given divided by the total number of observations. So this is summation x divided by n, where x stands for all the individual observations. So in the problem statement, the values were 15, 20, 10, 35 and 32. All this divided by the number of observations is 5. So we are getting that the arithmetic mean of the profit earned is 22.4 crores over here. Now in the second example, we shall see what is the change from the earlier example. Here once again the problem statement is given that as such there are 4 chemicals A, B, C and D and their costs per 100 grams is given. And they are contained in a compound in this ratio 1, 2, 3 and 4 parts. Then what should be the price of the resultant compound? So let us see how we are going to go about this. So over here what we are doing is we are once again finding the arithmetic mean. But how we are finding the arithmetic mean? Now we are multiplying the ratio in which the parts are given multiplied by the prices of the chemicals, right? And then we are going to divide it by the total number of the parts which we are calling as n. So the total ratio of the number of parts. So in our ratio it was 1, 2, 3, 4. So the total number is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. And here the summation fx, why we are calling it like this, each part is multiplied by the price of that particular compound for 100 grams. So the earlier price, the chemical A was 15, so 15 multiplied by 1 part plus chemical B 12 multiplied by 2 plus chemical C 8 multiplied by 3 plus chemical D, that price is 5 multiplied by 4, that is the ratio of the part in which it is present in that particular compound. Okay, so the average price of the resultant compound, it should be how much? 8.30 rupees for 100 grams. So what we have done so far, we have seen the calculation of the arithmetic mean for the ungrouped data. Now in the next example, some information has been given. One company is planning to improve the plant safety. So for this, the accident data for the last 50 weeks has been compiled, and this data has been grouped into the frequency distribution. So, and we have to calculate the arithmetic mean. So regarding how to group the data, how the frequency distribution table has to be formed, already the videos has been shared with you. So once again, the links are being given in the description box as well as at the end of the video, and also in the comments. So therefore what you can do is you can just check out all that and once again go to the videos to see how the frequency distribution table etc. is formed. So now we will see what is this data. So this is the data which has been present. Over here the number of accidents is given in the form of the class intervals. So 0 to 4, 5 to 9, 10 to 4, 15 to 19, 20 to 24. This is the range, and this is the number of weeks in which that many number of accidents has occurred. Now on the basis of this, we are going to calculate as such calculate the arithmetic mean. So for this, what we are going to do, firstly we are going to see what is called as the direct method. So in this direct method, what we do is first of all we find out the midpoint of the class interval. So here number of accidents, then midpoint of the class interval. So 0 to 4 midpoint is 2, then 5 to 9 midpoint is 7, then 10 to 14 midpoint is 12, 15 to 19 midpoint is 17, then 20 to 24 22. This is of course the frequency which is given to you. And now in the next step, what we have to do, we have to multiply both of these. That means Fi multiplied by Mi. Okay, so here we have got the multiplication. So you are also advised at the same time to just take down the problems and also try on your own along with listening to the video. So the calculation for finding the mean in this case is x bar equals to, this is the standard notation, mean is denoted by this x and with the bar over it that indicates the average. So is equal to summation Fi Mi divided by n. So over here the total of this, when you sum it up, again you can rewind the video and check the sum and all. This is 500 divided by 50, which is the sum of total number of weeks. So this is equal to, comes out to be 10 accidents per week. That is the number of arithmetic mean of the number of accidents per week. So this method is called as the direct method for finding out the mean for the grouped data. Now the second method for finding out the mean of the group data is called as step deviation method. Now this is the formula as such, x bar is equal to a plus 1 upon n summation Fi di into h, where a is the assumed mean, okay, then n is of course the frequencies, total frequencies, then Fi is of course the individual frequency, and this is the deviation, okay, multiplied by h, which is the width of the class interval. So what we will do is, we will now see how we have to apply this step deviation method. So now we have got this data. Here number of accidents that is given here. Then this is the mid value like was discussed earlier. And this is the new thing. Here we are calculating the deviation. So how this deviation is calculated? This midpoint minus a divided by h, where a is one assumed mean. So this assumed mean, it has to be taken from this particular data set, and preferably it has to be the central value. So in this particular case, the central value as such is 12. So how we are calculating this? See, mi 2, this is 2 minus 12 that is minus 10 divided by width of the class, which in this case is 5. So 2 minus 12 divided by 5, that is minus 2. Likewise 7 minus 12 divided by 5, minus 1. And in this particular manner all this has been calculated. So you are advised to just take the pen and paper, and simultaneously you can also note the problems along with listening to the video. Then number of weeks, that is the frequency which is given over here. Then what we have to do in the next step, we have to multiply this Fi into Di. That means 5 into minus 2, like this way we are getting minus 10. Then 22 into minus 1, that is minus 22. Then we are getting over here 0, 8, and then 2 into 2, that is 4. Okay, and summation Fi Di, in this case it is going to be minus 20. So if you add everything, then you will see that the sum is coming out to be minus 20. Now we will see how that formula, which was discussed in the earlier part of the video for step deviation method, is to be applied. So now we are using that formula. So A is 12 over here. Then this is the sum of all the frequencies, that is n, right, which is 50 in this case. Summation Fi Di, which is minus 20 multiplied by 5, and we get the answer as 10. So this is 10 accidents per week. So we have found this particular answer in both the ways, by using the direct method as well as by making use of the step deviation method. Now we are seeing what is called as the weighted average mean. So in the case of the weighted average mean, what we are doing is we are making use of the weights. That means each particular data point which is given to us, that has got some weightage, that has got some importance, and making use of those weights, then we are going to calculate the arithmetic mean. So let us just see the example. So this is the formula for calculating the weighted arithmetic mean. So the problem statement is like this. So an examination has been held, and the examination has been held to decide the award of the scholarship. Now the weights of the different subjects are different, and the marks obtained by 3 candidates out of 100 in each subject as such are given. So what we have to do, we have to decide who has to be given this particular scholarship on the basis of this particular information. Okay. So why this weighted arithmetic mean is also important is that in the earlier cases, as you can see, that equal importance or weight was given to each observation in the data set. But sometimes there are some situations where in which the value of the individual observations is not of equal importance. If such things happen, then that time we prefer to make use of the weighted average method. So here we can see that the table is given, the data is given in the table. So we have got 4 subjects: mathematics, physics, chemistry, English, and the weight, or the, you can say, credits for each subject are given 4, 3, 2, 1. Then the marks obtained by these students, which we are calling as A, B, C, they are given respectively for each subject. So on the basis of this, by calculating weighted average, we are going to decide who should get the scholarship. So the calculation part is like this. Now each data point is multiplied with the corresponding weight and written over here, right, for all the 3 students. So you can see over here that Wi, Xi, this table has been prepared. Similarly for student A, student B, and student C, and then we have written the sum of all the values. Now by using the formula for the weighted average, the weighted average marks obtained by student A, B, C for these 4 subjects is calculated, and we get this particular result. So once again it is suggested that you also should perform the calculation and you should get the answers. So here we are getting the weighted mean for student A 60.3, weighted mean for student B 65, then the weighted mean for student C is 64. 4. So we can come to know that the performance of student B is better than the other two students. So by weighted average method, it can be decided that the scholarship as such should be awarded to student B. Okay, so now that we have completed the arithmetic mean part, we shall move to geometric mean. So why we have to use geometric mean? In many of the problems related to business and economics, we deal with these variables which change over a period of time. So in such cases, the objective is to find out the average percentage change rather than just the simple average value to represent the average growth or decline in the variable over a period of time. So therefore, we need to calculate this another measure of central tendency, which is called as the geometric mean. Okay. So we are going to once again see one example and then see the importance of calculating the geometric mean. Now the formula itself is given like this. It is the nth root of product of all the n values which are given. So this is the data which is given. In this data, we have got the annual rate of growth of output of some company in 5 years. So these 5 years are given over here, and the annual rate of growth of the output of the company is presented here, and the output at the end of the year is given in the third column. Now if we calculate just the simple arithmetic mean by the earlier formula which was discussed, you can rewind the video and see that formula. So if we just calculate the mean growth rate, the simple arithmetic mean, it comes out to be 6. Now we will see what is the importance of calculating the geometric mean. So the formula for the geometric mean is of course nth root of product of all the values, and if you multiply all the values given in the table and take the nth root means raised to 1 by n, or in this particular case, since we have 5 values, so it is the 5th root. So easily this can be done by making use of the calculator. We find that the growth rate comes out to be 5.9% average growth. Now see, what is the importance of this? Let us see when the arithmetic mean is showing us 6 and this particular geometric mean is showing us 5.9%. See, the value of mean being 6, it implies that supposing 6% is the growth rate, then the output at the end of the last year, which is given in the table, it should come out to be approximately 133.81, which is a little bit more than the actual value which is given as 133.61. So this indicates to us that actually the correct growth rate should be slightly less than 6, and this we are getting by actually calculating the geometric mean. So this is the importance of calculating the geometric mean. Now we are going to see the third type of mean, which is called as the harmonic mean. So once again we have got two situations. One is for the grouped data and one is for the ungrouped data. Okay. So in the case of ungrouped data, the harmonic mean is defined as the reciprocal of the arithmetic mean of the reciprocal of the individual observations. So this is n divided by summation of 1 upon xi, where I goes from 1 to n. That means I is taking values from 1 to n. And for the grouped data, of course, we are going to consider the individual frequencies. So the change in the formula will be over here in the denominator. We are multiplying this 1 upon xi by fi, and then we are taking the summation, where n of course is the total of the frequencies, that is summation of fi. Now we will see regarding this how to calculate this harmonic mean. So this is the data which is given to us. You can see over here there is an investor who buys 40,000 worth of shares of a company each month, and he buys in the first 3 months, he has bought these shares at these prices 120, 160 and 210. So after 3 months, what is the average price paid by him for the shares? Okay, so since the value of the shares is changing after every 1 month, therefore the required average price per share, preferably it should be calculated by using the harmonic mean of the prices paid in the first 3 months. So we are using directly the formula. In this case, n is equal to 3. So divided by, those are the frequencies of course. So over here, divided by 1 upon 120 plus 1 upon 160 plus 1 upon 210. So if you just calculate it, it comes out to be around 166.66. So that means this is the average price paid by him for the shares after the 3 months. So in this manner, because there is a time period involved and the shares are also differing in value, so it is preferred that this calculation was done by making use of the harmonic mean. Over here we have been given the dividend yield, that range 2 to 6, 6 to 10, 10 to 14, and these are the number of companies which are offering the dividends in these particular range values, and this data is given in terms of the percentage of course. So making use of the formula for harmonic mean, we are calculating this. So over here it is, the formula will go as n divided by summation fi 1 upon mi. So in this case, the number of companies, that is the total number of companies, is 40. So that is why n is 40 divided by, if you just do the calculation, this summation fi into 1 upon mi, it comes out to be 5.5. So 40 divided by 5.5, which is 7.27%. So the average dividend yield of the 40 companies as such, it is 7.27%. So now that we have finished with the mathematical averages, we are going to talk about the averages of position. So these are different from the mathematical averages. The mathematical averages we just saw, they are the arithmetic mean, the geometric mean and the harmonic mean. Okay, they are mathematical in nature, and as such they deal with that characteristic of the data set which can be directly measured quantitatively, such that the income, profit, level of production, rate of growth, etc. But many times we want to take some precaution against the influence of some few outlying observations which are called outliers. And sometimes we also need to measure qualitative characteristics of the data set, such as honesty, intelligence, consumer acceptance and so on. So in all such cases, there is another measure of central tendency, okay, which are called as the averages of position, and these are the median, the quartiles, the deciles, the percentiles and the mode. So these are called as positional averages. So why they are called as positional averages? Because that term position, it actually refers to the place of the value of an observation in the data set. Okay, so as such, these types of measures, they help in identifying the value of an observation for which we have some interest, rather than just calculating it. So the first such average of position is called the median. So first of all, we are going to calculate the median for the ungrouped data. So in the ungrouped data also, we have two cases. Suppose the number of observations is odd, then in that case the median is the value of the n plus 1 tooth observation in the data array. Now this data array, you have to first arrange it either in ascending or descending order, and then you have to use this particular definition. Then if the number of observations is even, then the median is the mean of the n by 2th observation and the n by 2 plus 1th observation. So we are going to see how to find the median by means of the examples. So let us say that we have to calculate the median which is related to some data which relates to the service time which is given in minutes per customer for some 7 customers at a railway reservation counter, and these are the observations which have been provided to us. So the first thing, so this is what is given to us, and first thing what we have to do is arrange this data. So here data has been arranged in the ascending order, right? And after that we are making use of the formula to find the median. So number of observations in this case is odd. N is 7, so it is odd. So median is the value of the n plus 1 by 2th observation. So 7 plus 1, that is 8 divided by 2, 4th observation. So the 4th observation is 4.5. So that is why in this particular case the median service time is 4 minutes per customer. So likewise, supposing in place of odd, let us say we have even number of observations. So here we have 8 observations. So in that case the median is mean of n by 2 and n by 2 plus 1th observation. So n by 2 is obviously 8 divided by 2, that is 4, and 8 divided by 2, that is 4 plus 1, that is 5th observation. So mean of the 4th and 5th observation. So 4th observation is which one? C, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the 4th observation. Then the 5th observation is 4.5. So 4.2 plus 4.5, that is divided by 2, and that is equal to 4.35 minutes. Now we will see how to calculate the median for the grouped data. So the formula as such, it is given like this: median is equal to L. L is the lower class limit or the boundary of the median class interval. So we will see all this, how to determine median class, etc. Then n by 2, where you all know by now that n is of course the total number of observations in the distribution, minus CF. So CF is cumulative frequency. So cumulative frequency of the class previous to the median class interval. Okay, that is the CF, and it is divided by F. F is the frequency of the median class multiplied by H, which is the width of the median class interval. So we shall see by means of the example how to calculate the median for the grouped data. So you can pause the video and you can note down the things whatever you want it is. So this is the example. A survey has been conducted to determine the age in years of 150 autos, and the result of such a survey is given. What is the median age of the autos? So this is the age of the auto: 0 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 4, 8 to 12, then 12 to 16, 16 to 20, and this is the number of autos over here which is given: 13, 31, then 46, 20 and 10. So we shall see how to calculate the median for this particular data. Means we are calculating the median age, average age, but now we are calculating median age as such of the autos. So this n is 120. 120 divided by 2 is 60. So greater than or equal to. So that is happening at this 90 value. So that is why we are choosing this particular class as the median class. So median class in this particular case is going to be as such 8 to 12. And now we are going to apply the formula which was discussed earlier. So most important job is first you have to find out the median class, and after finding out the median class, the formula of course can be applied very easily. So this is the formula which is given. L, now lower limit of the median class is 8 plus n by 2, that is 120 by 2, that is 60, minus the cumulative frequency of the previous class, that is 44, frequency of the median class of course, that is 46, and multiplied by the width of the class interval, which in this case is 4. So if you just calculate all this, then approximately we are getting the answer 9.39, or we can just round it off to 9.4. So this is the median age for the autos based upon the data which is given to us. Now we will see about the quartiles. So these quartiles, deciles, percentiles, they are also called as the partition values. Okay. So first of all, we shall first see about the quartiles. So when the value of the observations in the data set, when they are arranged in a ordered sequence, they can be divided into 4 equal parts or quarters, making use of 3 quartiles, and these quartiles are Q1, Q2 and Q3. So this first quartile Q1, it divides the distribution in such a way that 25%, that means which is equal to n by 4 of observations, they have a value less than Q1, and 75%, that means 3n by 4, they have a value more than Q1. So the second quartile Q2, it has the same number of observations above and below it. So therefore it is the same as the median value. And this third quartile, that is Q3, it divides the data set in such a way that 75% of the observations, they have a value less than Q3 and 25% have a value more than Q3. Okay. So the generalized formula for calculating the quartiles in the case of the grouped data, it is given over here on the screen. So here CF is once again the cumulative frequency which is prior to the quartile class interval. Then L is the lower limit of the quartile class interval, F is the frequency of the quartile class interval, and H is of course the width of the class interval. In this particular case, the value of I goes from 1 to 3. So depending upon which quartile you are calculating, if it is Q1, then I will be 1. If it is Q2, then I will be 2. If it is Q3, then the value of I will be 3. So we are seeing also the formula for the deciles. So in the deciles, the value of the observations in a data set, when they are arranged in the ordered sequence, they can be divided into 10 parts, okay, using 9 deciles, where which we call as DI, and I goes from 1 to 9. And this is the generalized formula, and again all the symbols, they have got the same meaning like it was described before. And finally we have got the percentiles. So in this particular case, what happens, the values of the observations in the data, when they are arranged in some ordered sequence, they can be divided into 100 equal parts, okay, by using 99 percentiles. So that is we are calling as PI, and I value is from 1 to 99. So again over here we can see the generalized formula, all the symbols again they have got the same meaning as such. So we will see one example now to calculate these entities. We have got kilometers covered, then we have got the number of cars, that is the frequency. Okay, so same table is continued over here, and this is number of cars. So based upon our formula, we need to be finding out the CF, and also here we have found out the percentage CF. So this side we have got the kilometers covered, first column, second column is number of cars, then we have got the cumulative frequency, and then we have also got the cumulative the percentage cumulative frequency. Okay, so now what we are going to do, we are going to use the formulas as such to calculate Q1, Q2, Q3 and P75. So this calculation I have already done it. I have calculated Q1, Q2, Q3 and P75. So it is suggested to you that you see those formulas, and by making use of those formulas you just calculate this and try to verify your answer. Okay, so now we are coming to the next type of positional average, which is called the mode. So regarding the mode, the definition as such is that the value of the observation which occurs the most number of times, that is occurs most frequently in the data, okay, or the point or class mark with the highest frequency. Now this concept of mode, it is of great use to large scale manufacturers of the consumable items such as maybe ready-made garments, shoemakers, etc. So in all such cases, it is important to know the size that fits most persons rather than the mean size, okay. Again, there are many practical situations in which the arithmetic mean may not always provide the accurate characteristic or reflection of the data. This can be due to the presence of the extreme values, okay. So for example, in suppose we have a statement like average man prefers dash brand of shirt, or average production of an item in a month, or average service time at the service counter. Here the average term, actually the term average, it means majority, that is the mode value and not the arithmetic mean, okay. Similarly, the median may not actually represent the characteristics of the data set completely due to uneven distribution of the values of the observations. So for example, suppose in a distribution the values in the lower half they vary from 10 to 100, while the same number of observations in the upper half they vary from, let us say, from 100 to 7000, with most of them close to the higher limit. So in such a distribution, the median value of 100 will not provide an indication of the true measure of the true nature of the data. So such limitations which I have told you about for mean and median, they are removed by the use of the mode, which is the third measure of central tendency, okay. But however, you should just remember that the mode can be not a very good measure of central tendency when most frequently occurring values of the observation do not appear close to the center of the data, right. So we will see the examples of how to calculate the mode. Now this is the definition itself can be used in the case of the ungrouped data, and in the case of grouped data, what you are seeing, this particular formula, that is the one which is to be used for calculating the mode. So over here, this L is the lower limit of the model class, then this Fm minus 1, it is the frequency of the preceding class, that means the class preceding the model class interval. Then Fm plus 1, it is the frequency of the class which follows the model class interval. Fm of course is the frequency of the model class, and H of course is the width of the model class interval. So the supporting example we are seeing now. So the data has been given. So in this data, the sales during a 20 days period has been provided, and you can see that this is the raw data which has been given. It has been arranged already in ascending order, and by that definition, that mode is the value which occurs the most frequently. We easily identify that 71 is the value which has occurred 5 times, and by that definition we say mode is 71, okay. But now however, we are going to calculate this mode by making use of the data for the formula for grouped frequency, and we shall also see what is its significance, because even though we have used the definition and said that mode is 71, but by looking at the observations, we can come to know that actually many of the points in this data, they are less than 70, although we are saying that mode is 71. So therefore, let us do this calculation by making use of the formula for grouped data, and by rearranging this data in the form of a group. That is, we are going to make one frequency distribution table, rearrange the data, and then we are going to calculate the mode. So in this manner, you will come to know why to calculate the mode, the grouped frequency table is much more preferred rather than just by using the raw data and predicting the mode. So data has been rearranged. We have taken the sales volume as the class interval, number of days of course is the frequency. Now how to form the classes, etc. all this was discussed in the video on tabular representation of data. So once again you can refer to that video, and the links are given in the description box below, that you can just check that link and see it. So from this data, first of all we are going to identify the model class. So the model class is the one which has got the highest frequency. So in this case it is 5. So we will say that the model class is 61 to 64. So what we have done is, now we will find out all the values which are required in the formula. So L is the lower limit of this particular class, that is 61, right? Then Fm is frequency of model class, that is 5. Fm minus 1 is previous class frequency, that is 4. Fm plus 1 is next class frequency, that is again 4. And H is of course the width, which in this case is 3. So using all this, what we are going to do, we are going to calculate the mode. So substituting those values, we have got that the modal value is 62.5. So now you can see the difference. When we had just used the raw data, we got the mode value as 71, but after grouping the data, now we have got 62.5. And this is a more realistic scale. That is because we had already seen that most of our data it was below 70. Now we shall see the relationship between the mean, median and the mode. So when the distribution is symmetrical, that the values of the mean, median and the mode, they are equal. But when they are not symmetrical, the distribution is not symmetrical, that time Karl Pearson, he has suggested a relationship between the three measures of central tendency. So this relationship is like this: mean minus mode is equal to 3 times mean minus median. Mode is equal to 3 times median minus 2 times mean. Okay. Now supposing if most of the values of the observations in the distribution, they fall to the right of the mode, then the distribution is said to be skewed to the right, or it is said to be positively skewed. But if the distribution is skewed to negatively, that is towards the left, that means most of the values are to the left of the mode. In both these cases, the relationship in order of magnitude is like this: mean greater than median greater than mode. This shows a positive skew. Whereas if mean is less than median is less than mode, then this shows a negative skew of the data.